and in a moment, I'm going to show you the cringiest political video since Hillary Clinton danced the Macarena at the 1996 Democratic National Convention. But before we get to that, what does the phrase "pass the torch" mean to you? Well, to most people in a political context, it calls to mind this.
Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
Yes, those were some of the opening lines of John F. Kennedy's famous 1961 inaugural address, full of hope and optimism. But now, instead of intellectual sparkle and new American glamour of the Kennedy administration, well, this is what Americans will get if the Democrats decide to pass the torch.
Poor hubby. Poor hubby.
That's why we're here today. Because we have the ability to see what can be, unburdened by what has been.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
And you exist unburdened, one supposes, by what has been. Look, this is what happens when you're a clapped-out Democrat Party, and far from the glory days of JFK, you're ordering that torch you're so keen to pass from Facebook Marketplace. Because amidst all the backing and forthing of will Joe Biden step back from the presidential race or even the presidency, there's a new group which I'm going to tell you about, which is registered its domain name just 2 weeks ago, and they have suddenly popped up online. It's called, you guessed it, Pass the Torch, Joe. And here's the video. And yes, this is the one they're using to send their message to the president.
President Biden, you saved democracy in 2020.
Now you have a chance to do it again.
It's time to pass the torch and let us choose a new nominee.
One who can bring new energy, new hope.
And make sure Donald Trump never gets near the White House again.
Our country's future is in your hands.
So please, be the leader we know you are. Pass the torch, Joe.
Pass the torch.
Pass the torch.
Pass the torch.
Pass the Torch is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Wow, what a happy, healthy, high-energy bunch they look like. Sheesh. Now, this is only the latest in what has been a month-long campaign by Democrat elders, the insiders. Remember, the same Democrat elders who told us everything was fine with Joe Biden for years, while in private talking amongst themselves about his inability to remember the names of friends, colleagues, and even the defense secretary.
And so it's all about treating people with dignity. And it's about making sure that, look, I mean, for example, look at the heat I'm getting because I named the Secretary of Defense to a black man.
Oh my God, it sounds like a new character in the Marvel Universe. Secretary of Defense, black man. Now, Joe Biden is reportedly at his beach house for the weekend, raging about Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama, who he sees as leading the plot against him, while also, according to various media reports, definitely not going to make any announcements until after Israel's Bibi Netanyahu visits Washington on Wednesday. Doesn't hold a grudge, this guy, simply because he doesn't want to give the Israeli PM, whom he loathes, the satisfaction. Now, you'd think an 81-year-old would be more mature, and you would also think that a party that calls itself the Democrats would be more, well, democratic. Instead, though, let's step back here and think about what they are doing to their party and the American people. Remember, after foisting Joe Biden on America in 2020 with his 81 million votes, using him as the consensus candidate who could beat Bernie Sanders, and then going through the whole process of fortifying democracy and using everything from those COVID voting rules to social media to get him over the line. And then, here we are 4 years later. Now, after all of that, they're forcing Biden through an uncontested primary process to be the nominee again, when all the evidence showed that there were serious doubts about his mental state. And now, the masters of the Democratic Party want you to forget all of that as they use pressure groups and selective media leaks to wish Joe Biden out of the race so they can choose someone else, either Kamala Harris or some other candidate theoretically picked as late as after the convention by so-called superdelegates. Who knows? Could even be Hillary Clinton. And this, they say, these are the people who say democracy is on the line. Vote for our candidate, candidate X, because only X can save democracy. And if you cast your Democratic vote for somebody else, Donald Trump, well, what do? Hate democracy or something? This is their logic. Look, I much prefer the Republican style of passing the torch, which has seen JD Vance elevated to status of crown prince of the MAGA movement. And if I wasn't impressed with him before, I'm even more so now, because check this out. The Washington Post, and I think they meant us to be angry about this, but it feels to me like a campaign ad, free publicity. According to the Post, as senator, Vance used his power to block woke diplomatic appointments by the State Department. He would force nominees to come clean about their positions on DEI policies, using taxpayer dollars to install gender-neutral bathrooms in consulates and embassies, and quiz them about whether it's really all that great an idea, diplomatically speaking, to fly pride flags from American facilities in socially conservative countries. According to the Post, quote, Vance's intensive scrutiny of President Biden's ambassadorial nominees reflects his view that cultural elitism has infected America's diplomatic corps and needs to be rooted out through extraordinary vetting efforts, said U.S. officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss closed-door meetings, unquote. Well, damn straight, Senator, and thanks to the intrepid reporters at the Washington Post for making this clear. Vance is, of course, only 39 and in a far better position to be a true generational change, a real new torchbearer for the Republicans than anyone the Democrats have on offer. But, of course, the Democrats have always been about being young and hip and in touch with the youth.